As the national Kakata Science Broker, let me introduce myself. My name is Sakila, or you can as well call me Hila. I'm coming from International Relations Batch 2021, as well as an IR lab assistant. And right now, I'm going to be your master of ceremony of today's lecture. Before we begin, I would like to remind you all to please turn off all of your electronic devices, as well as your phones or your computers or your laptops, so we can give our undivided attention to our talented speaker. In this warm afternoon, we all gather here to attend today's guest lecture about international politics, which titled Nuclear Weapon as Regime of Controlled Technopolitical Crisis in the Perspective of a Journalist, which going to be delivered by our speaker, Dr. Narish Alikpayev, PhD from Yale University, United States of America. As an Irish student, we are indeed very familiar with this topic, since we also learned about international politics and international security itself. In which, when we're talking about international security, we often bring up nuclear weapon as one of the most interesting things to talk about. Since in this world, not a lot of countries have this possession of nuclear weapon. Next on, we're going to do a signature souvenir giving to today's guest lecture speaker, Dr. Nari, which is going to be delivered by the head of our lab, Mr. Vishnu Mahendra Viswaya. All right, now we're going to jump right into our most awaited section, which is guest lecture titled Nuclear Weapon as a Regime of Controlled Technopolitical Crisis in the Perspective of a Journalist, delivered by Dr. Nari Chalikpayev, PhD from Yale University, who's going to be the speaker of today's guest lecture, and my partner here, Amalia, who's going to lead this session as the moderator. A round of applause, everyone. All right, thank you so much, Sakila, for the introduction, and hello, everyone. Going back again with your resident laboratory assistant, Hubungan, and today I'm going to lead and moderate the session with our speaker, Dr. Narish Alikpayev. And before we're going to the discussion, I'm going to introduce a little bit of Dr. Narish Alikpayev. He is the assistant professor of Slavic language and literature in Yale University, and he studied urban, cultural, and political history of the late Russian Empire, the Soviet Union, and its successor states. And his interests currently are in genealogy and practices of Soviet and post-Soviet performance, the history of Eurasian music and soundscapes, and the culture of resistance in contemporary Russia and Kazakhstan. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Narish Alikpayev. Time is yours.
Here. Yes. So, hello everyone. I'm really happy to greet you today. So, this is a really complex topic, but don't be scared. I'm trying to make it really as sort of accessible, as easygoing, and as comfortable for you as I can. So this is a topic of my postdoctoral research, which I conducted 3 years ago at Sciences Po Paris. It's a school of French School of Political Science and International Relations. But since that time, my research interest slightly changed. So now I'm working on essentially, I'm an urban historian. I'm a historian of landscapes, politics, and a little bit of international relations. So we have. I guess we share some common interest with you. So I will try to present this issue of nuclear weapons, nuclear politics for you, try to make it accessible. But if you have any questions, any doubts, any concerns, please do not hesitate to ask questions, to interrupt me. And I hope that we, after my presentation, which will take approximately probably 40 to 45 minutes, we can have an informal exchange, and you are welcome to ask me questions about this presentation, but also about Yale University, where I come from. Because my visit to Indonesia has several aims, and one of them is being a Yale Global Emissary. So I meet the officials of Indonesia, representatives of the embassies, of DP, rectors, vice rectors of universities, not this one, unfortunately. But so essentially, I talk to students also, and I try to explain the process of recruitment in in various US, particularly Yale, yeah, how it works, and so I cannot make any promises, yeah, but I can explain to you. Some of you would like to apply to Yale graduate school. I can give some comments on that. So let us pass to the essence of this conversation, which is about nuclear weapons, yeah, nuclear politics. So let me make a few sort of conceptual statements first, so that we kind of define this broader issue. And so it's going to be a framework for the discussion that we will have. So, what do you know about nuclear weapons, actually? What is this? Yes, please.
Thing that came to my mind is what I know about nuclear weapons. Only a few countries in the world has it. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, which countries? This is great. Which countries?
I mean, United States, Russia, France, and Iran, and China also.
China, okay. Four, but that's not all. Who else? Which else? Which country else does have those?
North Korea,
North Korea, yes. Five.
Pakistan,
Pakistan, great.
India,
India,
Israel.
Israel. Well, Israel neither declares nor acknowledges. So it's 8. Oh, this is a very sort of kind of politics, right? So neither acknowledge nor deny. Okay, and anyone else?
Germany.
The UK, the United Kingdom. Yeah, the United Kingdom was the third country which were acquired nuclear weapons. So, and we know that since 1946, nuclear weapons played a major role in international politics, right? Nuclear weapons was really important for the end of the Second World War, right? Because essentially the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki made Japan surrender, yeah, and this de facto terminated the Second World War. And this, the invention of nuclear weapons, the creation of nuclear weapons, also pushed the United States, the Soviet Union, to accelerate its nuclear research, and this in long term caused the Cold War. Right? And you probably know what Cold War is. You definitely know what Cold War is. And the Cold War played a major role for the entire world, for Indonesia as well. And it was ongoing, so that it had lasting, ongoing political consequences until the 1990s, right? Okay. So, and we still essentially live in a post-Cold War period. And now some political scientists, some scholars say that we actually live in the Cold War #2, the Second Cold War. It's a very, very problematic and troubling relation between Russia and the West. Yeah. Okay, this is very good. And who were the scholars who theorized the nuclear studies, nuclear politics in the 1960s? There were two particular scholars. So those of you who study the theory of international relations should know those names. Pardon?
Hiroshima.
Is it Hiroshima?
Yes, Mearsheimer, to some extent, yes. Well, he's still active.
It's the
Probably still appreciating your times. So Kenneth Waltz and Thomas Shelley. Waltz, you probably know him from other reasons. But Waltz and Shelley are kind of fundamental scholars for the theory of nuclear politics. So, and sort of different nuclear states have approached different sort of strategies towards the this kind of towards sort of the behavior, yeah, versus the in the case of, let's say, nuclear, yeah, which remain a theoretical thing. So, no, there are strategies of behavior in nuclear politics. One is what are the strategies? There are two potential behaviors. One is to wait for the strike and then strike back. Yeah. The other one is a policy of preemptive strike.
Yeah.
So we suspect that there is a danger and we strike preemptively. Yeah, so for example, Russia has recently changed its nuclear politics from purely defensive, so waiting for the strike and attack, to more offensive. Yeah. Now they say that their nuclear doctrine kind of presumes that they can attack first. And there are two major sort of elements of strategic behavior in nuclear politics. One is deterrence, yeah, and the other is, these are like two basic concepts nuclear scholars use or instrumentalize. One is deterrence, and to deter, what does it mean to deter? What is that? Deterrence. Unfortunately, I don't speak any Indonesian, so how to use that. But what is the deter? Deterrence.
For those who want to answer in Indonesian language, it's also allowed. I will help with the translation too.
Is it like some sort of prevention of some sort?
Yes. Could you be more specific? It is a sort of prevention. Yes. Okay. But what kind of prevention? You go to a doctor. The doctor tells you, "Oh, to prevent disease, you should take, I don't know, vitamin C or vitamin B." Is it that kind of prevention? Probably not. This is bad kind of disease. So, anyone? Okay. Do you see, is there a plug somewhere in this room? Plug. You know what the plug is? A plug. There. Yeah? Put your fingers into the plug. Would you? No, you wouldn't. Because you know you would die. So that's it, basically. Yeah, so, because deterrence means that no country, like no sane country, would attack the other country. Because this would cause the global nuclear war. This would cause the mutually assured destruction. Yeah, because no state can win the nuclear war. Yeah? Any nuclear attack can provoke the mutually assured destruction of the entire humanity. Yeah? So this is why nuclear weapons are never used. Never used. But then the question is, why to have them at all, right? Because countries, many states have been investing billions of dollars into their production, into their storage, into their recycling, yeah, and they have never been used, right? So it's all very theoretical, right? So this is this, yeah, and there are regions actually displayed that they are nuclear free, like Latin America, South America, and Africa. There are no states in those continents that have nuclear weapons. Yeah? But if there is a if there is a global nuclear war, these regions will also suffer. Yeah? They cannot be intact. So this is all to say that nobody will be actually. It's just not. Okay, let's move further. Um, Regarding the means of delivery of the tactics, yeah, we were discussing the strategy and the global framework. Now, what about the tactics of delivery, the means of delivery? Think about, you probably studied Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Yeah, what happened to Hiroshima and Nagasaki? How were the bombs delivered? Yes? By what? By water? By train? By horses? By planes? Yeah? By planes. And if we compare like 1945 to 2023, what changed? Are they still delivered by planes? Like hypothetical. Would the nuclear bombs be delivered by planes? Probably not. How?
Apa nama? Teknologi.
Yeah. There is some thinking process. So, yeah. Okay, suggest something. Fun, right? How do you organize the means of delivery?
Maybe I also want to answer. Probably a launcher,
A what?
a launcher or something.
Launch? Yeah. So, what kind of launch?
Perhaps it's similar to a rocket launcher,
Ah,
something like that.
great.
Because I heard that when in the event of Cuban Missile Crisis, the device that was going some kind of launcher.
This is excellent. This is excellent. So, essentially, we have say 2 or 3 major nuclear efforts. Yeah, in the early period of time, nuclear bombs would be only delivered by planes. Yeah, because the technology of launch of rockets wasn't still invented. Then in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, essentially the sort of in the way the predictions and the technology was developing, in the sense that the states were working on technologies of delivering the missiles through rockets. Yeah, rockets, and these were like whole range, like 1,000 kilometers to 2,000 kilometers, and medium range, yeah, up to 5 or 6,000 kilometers, and then large distance up to 10,000 kilometers. Yeah. Okay, this was the second stage. And what's the third stage? What's going on now? There is a major, like, do you know, there is a, have you ever been to Surabaya? Surabaya has a monument in the city center.
Very
Why not the submarine? I was very curious. Why there is a small the submarine? No one could tell me actually. So I kept being curious. But this is the response, right? So now there are underwater submarines. No one knows where they are because they're very deep. They're in neutral water somewhere in Indian Ocean or the Pacific Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean. So they are like traveling all the time, and they have nuclear missiles. And this is the way to hide them, and this is the way to sort of prepare unexpected launches. Because in the case of the use of nuclear weapons, you do not want the enemy to know from where the launch would be. Otherwise, the enemy would destroy those missiles, right? So now, 80 to 90% of all nuclear weapons are stored in the underwater submarines. Yeah. Which has also like, it's kind of expensive and problematic to sustain all the submarines, but it works like this. And the fourth step would probably be, what's the fourth step? The development of this technology. And now there is a lot of discussions about the new treaty. So it will probably be nuclear weapons stored, placed in the outer space. And I'm not sure if it's like actually satellites, but actually in the also yeah. So there are theoretical and practical political discussions. So this all is to say that technologies also technologies are coming through. Then let's think about the sort of approach to the global nuclear war. Yeah, how the scholars and the thinkers and the politicians position themselves vis-a-vis the risk or the possibility of nuclear war in the more strategic sense. Like, imagine you are somewhere in the 1960s, 1970s. You talk about the Beatles. It's the most famous song by the Beatles.
Back to the
Let's
USSR.
start with that. Yeah, it's yesterday. Then briefly, there's one in which is really representative of some zeitgeist. You know, zeitgeist is spiritual time. Yeah,
Back to the USSR. Back to the
Ah.
USSR.
No, I mean that's a good example of that. Yeah. And back to the USSR, is it Beatles?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not a specialist of Beatles. No, I mean another song. No? Do you have the two?
Yes.
Let's have some fun.
'67 surgeon.
In the time when I was born, lived a man.
Yellow Submarine.
Yeah.
Yellow Submarine.
So, this song is called, for those of you who haven't heard it, do it here. It's fantastic. It's called Yellow Submarine. Yeah, what is Yellow Submarine? Yeah. So this is the boat, which is underwater, yeah, which contains this nuclear missiles, right? So, and what's the sense of it? Why they're saying about this? I mean, it looks, it sounds like a really funny, merry song, yeah? It's kind of nonchalant, yeah, it's fun. But the meaning is much deeper, is way more provocative and frustrating, right? So what's beneath this gay song? This is in IR, political science, one should never underestimate the power and persuasiveness of cultural science. This culture, in art in particular, always reflects the spirit of the time. Yeah? So, especially like someone like this. So this song actually reflects the deep anxiety of the 1960s about the global nuclear war. That there was a very strong antagonism between the Soviet Union and the United States, who were at the brink of nuclear war. Have you studied the Cuban Missile Crisis? Yeah. So this was a real threat of mutual annihilation. Yeah. So, and in those times, the fear was so great that it was pervasive, it was everywhere. It influenced the mass culture, it influenced the representations, it influenced art, it influenced architecture. Like, do you know, like, there is an architectural movement or style of brutalism. What is brutalism? Did anyone take an elective architectural history? No. So brutalism is a style. It's like piles, massive amounts, quantities of reinforced concrete. It's really bulky. But why is it that bulky? It's to protect people in the case of nuclear war. So if there is something bad happen, these walls would protect you, so you would feel safe. So it is like it's material and physical comfort, but it is also psychological comfort, right? So it gives you a sense of safety, right? Okay. So the dynamics of the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, to a large extent, even 1980s, were shaped by this conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union, the fear of the global nuclear war. And what happens after it? Are we now living in the epoch of fear of global nuclear war? Perhaps a little bit, like, because last year Putin sort of threatened to use nuclear war for Ukraine. But generally we don't, right? Something changed. What has changed? What have been the dynamics? The answer is partially on this board, right? Yeah.
I think something changed on nuclear is the usage of the source of energy. Because a lot of countries use nuclear as a source of energy. And instead of that, there are a lot of treaties that control the usage of nuclear, so that countries who has the sources of nuclear will not use it as the military defense. Yes.
Okay, so this about treaties, this is please do not touch your phone. You might be curious. Do whatever you want, but don't expect it to be when it's so, I mean, treaties is excellent. We will pass the treaties with you in a few moments. Regarding nuclear energy, yeah, this is a major factor now because energy is a major factor in international politics. Demographics such that population is growing and we need more energy, and we have been using coal, and coal is good for the planet. So nuclear energy is kind of clean, yeah, and very good, but it's also kind of expensive and at the beginning. So the investment in nuclear energy that will happen is a lot at the start, and then we'll be using it for 40 years. But that's a different topic. I'm not talking about nuclear energy today because this is completely like there are limitations of what we can discuss. Yeah, nuclear energy is a different kind of aspect. So, but what else? Because you see, if we look at this chronology, yeah. So it was the first kind of period when we have the first stage when the kind of the base of nuclear club has been formed. U.S., Russia, I mean USSR, the UK, France, China, and USSR proliferated. USSR passed part of this nuclear technology to China, and the US proliferated towards the UK. The US, well, first of all, the US and the Manhattan Project was co-created by German, British, and American scientists. It was a kind of shared strategic project. And also some documents from the US nuclear project leaked in Russia, right? So Russian spies stole some technologies initially from the US, but they would have done it anyway, but probably later. Yeah, so this leaked documents aided Soviet Union to accelerate this program. So, and then we have the newer members of the club, right? India, Pakistan, and North Korea. And these are new members of the club. And what can you say about this ones? Let's start with India and Pakistan. Anything interesting about India and Pakistan? In terms of nuclear. One obvious thing that we notice is the date. 1998 and 1993. Yeah. Why is that? Is it a coincidence? Are there coincidences in such things? No. So what's the point here? Yes, please.
Kashmir conflict.
Kashmir conflict. Yeah. Is there only Kashmir conflict?
Conflict when the India and Pakistan also escalated again.
Well, let's say overall, these countries have not been friends, to put it mildly. Yeah. There have been a lot of contradictions. There have been a lot of contradictions, let's say, between India and Pakistan on a variety of questions. Yes, since the 1940s, yeah, since the independence of let's say, the Indian Pakistan, because they were one country, and Pakistan, it's entrenched, so it's this kind of this relationship, which is uneasy, has deep historical, let's say, political roots. But it was strategically important for India, or let's say for Pakistan, to develop its nuclear program, to have a parity with India in terms of like military, defensive, and offensive capacity. Yeah, because of the antagonisms, military antagonisms in the region. So Pakistan thought that parity is necessary. So this all is to say that now we live in a world where global nuclear war, like the war between the United States and USSR, which was possible or predictable or kind of theoretically in the minds of scholars, politicians, and practitioners after the disintegration of the Soviet Union, after 1991, is less likely. But limited nuclear conflicts, like one between India and Pakistan, are more likely. And in fact, there was at least one case, at least one episode, when India and Pakistan were close to a nuclear war, like limited nuclear war, because Pakistan and India do not have a huge nuclear arsenal, but they have a sufficient nuclear arsenal to attack each other and to destroy each other to a large extent. And what would happen, let's say, there is a limited nuclear war? Not major nuclear war that would destroy the entire planet, but a limited nuclear strike, an exchange of nuclear strikes between India and Pakistan. Let's go one. Let's imagine this scenario. So, the humanity is overall is intact, but we have two countries destroyed that combine nuclear weapons: India and Pakistan. What does nuclear weapons generally provide as effect? What is the effect? Let's read this quote. Who would like to read the quote? Anyone?
Anyone who would like to read the quote? Mau baca quotesnya voluntarily?
Yes, please. Please go ahead.
A nuclear war is unlikely to be limited to one bomb, so this devastation would probably be replicated across countries or regions or globally.
A nuclear war is unlikely to be limited to one bomb, so this devastation would probably be replicated across countries or regions or globally. A further impact of nuclear war that has received renewed attention in recent years is that of nuclear winter, caused by vast amounts of particulate matter from burning cities blocking sunlight and reducing rainfall and agricultural production for up to a decade. And even a limited nuclear war, up to 1 billion people could die from famine as a result.
Thank you so much. So, what does derive from this quote? So, even if it's not global, if it's like regional, so we have vast amounts of which would stay in the air for months, probably for years, and it would prevent the sunlight penetrate, and it would like cause many other consequences, unpleasant. And if there is no sunlight, or not enough sunlight, what's likely to happen?
Photosynthesis.
What's like sunlight is a pleasant thing for us, yeah, because it's nice, it's cool, it has some sunlight, but it's not only for us, yeah. So what is it vital for?
Environment. Environment.
What environment, for example? Environment is like everything you be like plants, exactly. Agriculture, nothing would grow. So if nothing grows, then what happens?
Traffic.
There is hunger, right? If there is hunger in one region, what happens? Like, let's say there is hunger in India, Pakistan, and neighboring regions. Part of Iran, Bangladesh, part of Myanmar, like all these regions is desolate. What happens? And there is hunger. What is likely to happen? There are two things that will happen. Some people will die, maybe many. Those who will not die from the illness, right, will die from hunger. Then another part will
Immigrant.
go elsewhere. Will immigrate, will migrate. So we'll have hundreds of millions of people. India has a billion.
Again.
So many people from the region would migrate. And where would it go? Yeah, we are in the region. So think about it. Okay. Now, let's talk about the architecture of international relations. And your colleague has already suggested that we sort of pay attention to the normative documents, yeah, or international treaties, conventions between the states that attempt to regulate the control, development, proliferation, research, any kind of nuclear politics that happens globally. Yeah? So, because obviously many states, because this is an issue of importance, of vital, of course, as we have just seen, with this example of India and Pakistan, it's an issue of vital importance for the entire humanity. Yeah. So, obviously, all the states have been trying to, make agreements, regulate the process, participate, define community politics. And so, what has been happening in terms of treaties or agreements or sort of attempts to take this process under control? The latest treaty is TPNW, which is a treaty for prohibition to prohibit, to ban of nuclear weapons. So this is a very radical treaty that says no nuclear weapons should exist. Let's destroy these weapons. This treaty was adopted. There were a lot of discussions, debates, like for many years. But about this treaty, it was a working group, and it finally was adopted in 2017. No? And what is the process of when a legal instrument is adopted by an international body, the UN or in the UN system? What is usually the cause? How does it what is the mechanism, legal mechanism for the entry in force of any treaty? Do you study international law? Okay, so you should know this. This is a very specific legal question. Come on. You have a treaty, you have an international conference, you debate for I don't know how much time, make a lot of concessions, make a lot of compromises, quarrel. Usually Iran and Israel have a fight, a physical fight. So at the end, you arrive at a compromise document. everyone is happy, the document is completely toothless, but you still have a document. Yeah. Then it's a document, it's a treaty, but which is adopted by the international body, which is signed by the UN General Secretary. But does it enter in force then in Geneva or in New York? No, it doesn't enter in force. How does it enter in force? Come on, this is basics.
The controller
You
divide.
study international relations, you must know this.
The controller divide. Controlerification.
There is a
Certified.
specific process which is called what?
Ratification.
Ratification. Who said that? Well done. Well done. That's 5 points go to Gryffindor. So ratification. What is ratification?
When a country, how do you say it? They agree to a certain treaties and then they put it into their domestic law.
Exactly. So that's the because usually there is a policy recommendation of the, let's say, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Yeah, there is executive sort of will or policy or intention, which is delivered or discussed during the international bodies, international conferences, and then it goes back to the country, and the country, it's usually the parliament, that must ratify this. Sometimes parliaments ratify, sometimes they do not. Yeah, it depends on the politics. In what happens in the US, you know what happened in 1917 or 1918 with the League of Nations. The US Parliament, the US Congress didn't ratify the treaty of the League of Nations. So the United Nations never became the state party of the League of Nations. Is probably by failure, maybe. So let's say the state party ratifies this international agreement. What happens then? What happens next? Like after one country ratifies the treaty, they accept the treaty, does it enter in force globally? No. No. Okay. Now, then when does it enter in force globally?
Yeah.
When all the parties sign? Or when 2 parties sign, 6 parties, or when 5 or 10 or 40 or 50, 100? Yeah. Oh, your international knowledge is kind of. So we just want to look at that. And then the real question is that, like, it really depends on the case. In the European Union, every country should accept. Each country. If one country doesn't accept, then it doesn't work. Yeah. And this is why there were always like problems always with the UK. Yeah. Because the UK never wanted to accept anything. So and then there were compromises and then there were opt-outs. What is the famous opt-out in the UK? In European Union versus the UK? The Schengen Agreement. Yeah. There is Schengen area. So if you get the Schengen visa, you can travel across the European Union. But can you go to the UK? No, you need a special visa. So even when the UK was part of the European Union, it didn't accept the Schengen Agreement. So it opted out of the Schengen Agreement. Right? So this is an example of opt-out. Under the UN system, you can have this too. But usually in each treaty, in each particular agreement, the General Assembly or the Assembly of Countries to discuss this treaty define the number of countries, of ratifiers or ratifications after which the treaty will enter in force. In the case of T, P, and W, it was 40 countries. So the 40 or 41, 40 first countries signed it, and then it entered in force. Yeah. However, let's see this map. What's peculiar about this map? So we have like the countries. You have countries in favor, abstentions, against, absent, Ratified, signed. This is the data from 2018, but like now the picture hasn't changed dramatically. So what do you see? Do you see anything interesting about this map? This one clear thing about this map. Yes?
The honor of the nuclear weapon is absent.
Pardon?
The absence of nuclear weapon owners.
Exactly. There isn't any nuclear power advantage in this map. So nuclear powers ignored this treaty. They didn't come to the meetings. They didn't sign these documents. So they do not care about this treaty. And what is the treaty which prohibits the nuclear weapons if no nuclear power signs it? Does it make sense? Yeah? Or no?
Yes.
Does it make sense?
Nope.
It doesn't. It makes absolutely no sense. Right? So this is one very good example of how nuclear weapons politics has been working. Because we have divergent interests of nuclear states and non-nuclear states. Because having possessing of nuclear weapons is a major leverage in international politics. Like, why do you think, or why do you know that Russia is making a war against Ukraine without fear of making this war? And why the US only provides weapons to Ukraine? Why the US doesn't protect Russia? Because Russia has nuclear weapons. It can attack back. And you don't want nuclear weapons war with Russia. Just better to avoid nuclear war in general. So you see the state parties who signed the major state like parties. It's
Yes.
essentially the African countries and Latin American countries. They have policy, regional policy, that these continents should stay, these regions should be nuclear free. So no nuclear weapons at these continents. Yeah, so we have the very good situation with South America and with Africa. Indonesia has been very proactive in this treaty. Yeah, it has been part of the lobby, and Kazakhstan. Because Kazakhstan is very has been so it's part of its like foreign policy has been based on the disarmament, and it sold itself internationally as a anti-nuclear peaceful country. Okay, so let's see other examples of this is the latest treaty. Yeah, what about other treaties? Have you heard about START? There was START and New START. The first START was in the 1980s or early 1990s, and then the New START was in 2007, which is now over. Russia abandoned the New START like this year or last year.
Last year.
So what is the START? START is a bilateral agreement. It's not multilateral. Yeah, it's not the broad like treaty, but this is a treaty which has been efficient because it has been signed by two major nuclear powers. Because 90% of nuclear weapons globally are possessed by Russia and by the United States. So, and this is a treaty about the reduction of nuclear weapons. So they agreed not to produce more nuclear weapons and then to get rid of some existing arsenal. Now, like I'm noticing that none of you is actually taking notes. Is it a common practice in Indonesia not to take any notes when you have seminars or classes?
We record it.
Pardon?
We record it in our.
Oh, you reported,
Yeah.
but I never gave the permission to report this topic. You should have asked. But anyway, it's fine. You can record it, you can store it, but just do not share it. Do not make it into like, do not share it publicly. Yeah, you can use it for personal use. This is not a problem. Yeah, but the if we were in the US, I could sue you for the violation of intellectual property rights, but it is fine. No worries. For your personal use, it is fine. So we have the start, and we have the. Let's look at the regional agreement. The Treaty of Tanggal, 1996, is a treaty that was signed by almost all, like there were a few exceptions. I can't say for access to the meeting because it was national insurrection. So this is the anti or nuclear weapon free zone in Africa, of the African countries. And then there was the nuclear free zone treaty in Latin America, in also regional, treaty 1967, and this approach set up a regional kind of anti-nuclear policies of these regions. And of course, there were very important treaties in 1996 and 1963, and these were what the ban treaties, the so-called task ban treaties. Why these treaties are so important? What test means in this context? Is it the test that you're taking in school to get a grade? No. What kind of test are we talking? Test of what? Test of
The ownership.
you think, no, not even this. Even this kind of is when you have the book ready. When it's like that, you strike, right? But it's the test of bombs. Yeah? The test of bombs. So the test of you cannot have any weapon, you cannot produce anything without preparation, without trying it. How would it work? Is it efficient? Is it non-efficient? Like, would it work at all? Because nuclear bomb is a very complex thing. Yeah, so it requires a lot of research, theoretical research, and then it requires a lot of tests. Yeah, so to calculate the potency, to calculate the quantity of fissile materials, yeah, to measure the damage, for example, yeah, and to measure what, most importantly, the influence of this bombs, yeah, of these explosions. Limited Task Ban Treaty in 1963 prohibited the explosions in the air. So no tests of nuclear weapons were
No.
tests were possible after 1963 in the air. And this was a major step because radiation, as we know it, you have probably heard about Chernobyl. What's Chernobyl?
Area of nuclear.
Yeah, Chernobyl is.
If I'm not mistaken, Chernobyl is one of the cities that is affected by the radiation of nuclear, so it's isolated from the world right now.
That's what it is today. But what it was as event in 1987. Have you seen the HBO film Chernobyl?
They explode.
We have is HBO available here in Indonesia? You can just go to HBO and see they have 5 series film. It's 5 hours approximately. It's called Chernobyl, and it's marvelous. You will know a lot about nuclear, and you will know everything about Chernobyl. And this is historically accurate. Because there are many historical films, but they're not historically accurate. Chernobyl is a marvelous film. Yeah. So, so what happened in 1987? Yeah? what was it? It was a picnic. It was a conference.
I didn't even raise hand, but what you meant was referring to the Chernobyl itself. I don't really know much about Chernobyl, but in my opinion, no, from what I've gathered, Chernobyl is this place where I'm not sure what the country was, but I believe it's Ukraine, is it?
Ukraine.
They did like a nuclear test in there, like a massive nuclear test, because Chernobyl itself is like kind of like an island, like a deserted island somehow. Because I watched this documentary on YouTube by, I forgot the YouTuber, and yeah, they did like the massive nuclear test there for a lot of time. Like there are a lot of presidents there who was like the employee of the nuclear test. But for now, it's completely abandoned. But the place itself, it still has like the nuclear radiation.
Thank you so much, Bob. This is essentially what your colleague has said, and this is not wrong, but this is not exact. So Chernobyl wasn't a test site. Chernobyl was a nuclear plant. So it was a plant, a nuclear station that produced atomic energy. So it was a peaceful enterprise. Yeah? It was a nuclear plant. There were many, like hundreds of nuclear plants globally. But and it had 4 reactors. Yeah? One of them, reactor number 4, exploded because the reaction, like it's called reactors because there is nuclear reaction inside, and the reaction went south. Yeah. When south means went, something was wrong. Yeah, went turned to something really bad. So the reactor exploded, and it was a major ecological disaster globally. Why? Because it exploded in one place, in Ukraine, but the problem of nuclear explosion, yeah, whether you make tests, whether it's an explosion of a nuclear reactor, like any kind of nuclear catastrophe, is that the pieces of radiation, small pieces of dust and clouds and anything which is in the air, essentially it's the entire air around like kilometers, get contaminated with radiation. And they spread it over and over, like overall, essentially the entire continent. So Chernobyl contaminated parts of the Ukraine, entire Belarus, practically, parts of Russia, the Baltic states, even back to Czechia and to Sweden. So the radiation sort of norm was high for many weeks, days, weeks, months in that area. And sort of many people have been dying of cancer radiation for decades, for generations. So and in all areas where nuclear weapons were tested, yeah, essentially they did the same thing. And these areas were what were these areas for the tests? It was Algeria, yeah, and then for the French nuclear tests, and then Waktu, it's an island in the Pacific Ocean. The indigenous characters in the US, the indigenous characters in Australia, where else? In Kazakhstan, for the USSR's nuclear tests, where else? Previous major nuclear power, the China. The China tested them in Xinjiang, in the eastern territory, eastern parts of the northeastern part of China, in a valley which is called Kuliah. Yeah. So these areas were and have been and still are contaminated with radiation. Yeah, because radiation is not only in the air, it's in the soil, it's in water, it's in essentially in trees, in anything. And the sort of the period for oh gosh, I forgot this word. The destruction, decomposition of the cesium-99, which is part of the is 1,000 years. So this really it's only part of it. Right? So part of this heritage will be polluted for 1,000 years. So we do not want any nuclear bombs or any nuclear explosions ever anywhere, right? Because it's going essentially it will render our planet uninhabitable. So I guess I will sort of let's move to our conclusion. The conclusion is well that we could probably formulate two main ideas. First of all, the number of nuclear weapons in the world remains huge. It is a big number. It decreased somehow, but the existing arsenal is still more than sufficient to destroy the planet. The efforts of nuclear powers have been to prevent what they have, not to get rid of the arsenal. The international community is sort of faces imbalances because countries that do not possess nuclear weapons don't have enough leverage. The key thing, realpolitik, right? We can really so you must have leverage to get something done, to get an advantage, to get some issues resolved. And non-nuclear powers do not have leverage. And the fundamental contradiction between sort of theoretical approaches remains that nuclear weapons are elaborated by nation states, by single countries. They have to be governed globally, because if the nuclear weapon explodes, it's a global issue. And sort of the consequences so far are drifting towards kind of regionalist approach. So the only two regions that are really concerned about making themselves nuclear free are Latin America and Africa. So there is a kind of fundamental essential contradiction between this level of analysis and so it remains a theoretical, practical, political puzzle, which I hope you will so be able to tackle and somehow participate working on this issue. Because this issue requires a lot of people involved, a lot of energy, a lot of coordination, and there are many NGOs interested in this, and Indonesia is actually very active in this effort for non-proliferation and actually in the anti-development. So thank you for your attention, and please, if you have any questions, or if you have any questions to me as a professor of Yale University about potential application, motivation, that is the dossier, please do not hesitate. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your lecture, Dr. Nari. And now we're opening the Q&A discussion. So for those of you who want to ask for the questions, or even want to respond to the part of this lecture, please raise your hand. And you're allowed to talk in either Indonesian or in English, and I will help with the assistant for those who want to question or respond in Indonesian. Yes, please. Please, maybe you can mention your name first before your question.
All right, greetings. My name is Satya. I am from the International Intermediate class of 2021. First of all, I'd like to thank for the fruitful and helpful information that you did deliver. I have some questions related to the topic that we discussed today. How does the geopolitical context of a region impact its stance on nuclear weapon control and management? Because I'm currently studying in regionalism in IR. Therefore, I'm kind of curious how region can impact on the stance on nuclear weapon control and readiness. And also, I have another question aside of the topic that you just delivered. It's more like, I don't know if it's personal or not, but I'm really curious about how the culture of the students on Yale compares maybe to other students that you already visited while your tour maybe in unique or
Well, the two questions are really broad, so I'll start with the first one. So first of all, which region do you have in mind? You mentioned regional approach. Which region do you
I think we can go to Asia probably.
probably Asia? But you're not sure.
Yes, I'm not sure. It's like China, South Korea, North Korea. I think geopolitical is very right in China.
China, Japan, North Korea, South Korea. Well, North Korea has North Korea has nuclear weapons. Japan and South Korea do not. And they are antagonistic. And North Korea actually has been threatening South Korea with nuclear bomb. So there isn't any conversation with them. And come on, you probably know all South Korea and North Korea. They're not exactly the threatening countries to each other. They're not big. So, but they're big before. So I would say that like it's a very complicated issue. Japan is trying to be like Japan is in a very sort of bigger situation because it's an ally of the US and the West. And it also stores the military bases of the US, but it's stored until like probably some point to recover anymore. But there's also an antagonism from China. And so there's a lot of politics in it. Yeah, so look at it's secondary compared to like other countries. I would say that China's development is the program. Yeah, China's not going to give up. And it's been tough in negotiations. Regarding the second question, right, I'm not really speaking with private capacity, so I'm private person here now, but in the poverty region, I mean, there are differences. Between students. The question is not what the differences are, yeah? Like, it's like what we can do with these differences. How do we support to make the learning environment comfortable for you? Right? When I teach, how would I teach them ways in a way that you learn something, take something from this, and also talk and learn from you. Learning and teaching is always a kind of process of exchange of communication of mutual co-construction. Knowledge is a construction, co-construction. I don't know it, you don't know it.
Yes, please mention your name first before your question.
So thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Aziza. Thank you so much, Professor Nari, for your elaboration. I love the way you explain things in a friendly way so that we can understand even though English is not our mother language. So my question is like, I would like to know your personal opinion on this. Do you personally agree that the countries, especially the nuclear powers, they should conduct a collective agreement to demolish all nuclears in the world because it's only caused a lot of harm than good? Like, what's your personal take on this? Also, my second question is that, let's say one nuclear country agree to demolish their nuclear, and then will the annihilation of the nuclear cause harm as well? If yes, then aren't we stuck on the dilemma that either the usage and also the annihilation will cause harm anyway? Thank you.
That's a brilliant question. And it's kind of it's a very core of the nuclear dilemma, right? Well, the easiest thing so to begin with, if one nuclear country agrees to demolish its arsenal, then everyone should agree, right? So one country would never agree to this unless everyone else agrees. Yeah. So this is a basic kind of sort of premise. Or everyone does it, or no one does it. Then, from this step, we go to the second question. Is it realistic? Yeah, because there are different schools of thought, because there's a school of thought that says that we actually didn't have a major war, or we have local conflicts, proxy conflicts, like now when essentially Ukraine is kind of has the weapons that are provided by the West and is fighting against Russia. Yeah, and we had similar proxy conflicts in Africa during the Cold War. We had proxy conflicts in Korea. Yeah, North Korea is South Korea, yeah, because North Korea was backed up by the Soviet Union and South Korea was backed up by the US. Yeah, so we have like various conflicts but no major global conflict like World War II. Yes, only nuclear weapons are efficient, yeah, to contain, yeah, the fact of the possibility of the event. So so realistically, I don't see any scenario in which major nuclear powers would get rid of their arsenal. And I do not see, unless there is something like with a major, a series of major like nuclear catastrophes that would push them to do it. But it has to be like a catastrophe that would not be fatal, serious enough to make everyone like realize that actually the more realistic scenario is that countries would gradually get rid of their nuclear plants, the energy. But again, this is also very contradictory because if we get rid of nuclear plants, nuclear energy, then we would need to use more coal, which is more problematic than nuclear energy, right? So on one side, we see Germany closing nuclear plants, but many other states like Turkey and reopen build new reactors. So this all is very so. I mean, brilliant question, but there's no answer to this question, which shows that it's a good question.
All right, any other question? Okay, please.
I'm from batch 21, and the atomic bomb that happened across humanity as the World War II. And after the World War II, they have debates over whether it's necessary to do the atomic bomb using Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And some scholars think that it wasn't necessary because the Japan already surrendered. But on the other hand, some scholars think that it was necessary to end the war. I would like to ask a personal opinion regarding this debate. Do you think that what happened in Japan and the Christian trauma decisions to do the atomic bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki end the war, and do you think that the possession of nuclear weapon is necessary to maintain peace and stability, global stability? Thank you very much.
Say about this, I mean, this is, I think I mentioned the elements of, I provided an answer to this.